To the Liberal critic for Justice and Public Safety, Pam Parsons. Hello.
Well, good morning, Linda, and it's nice to hear your voice on Open Line. That said, I want to certainly extend the thank you to Paddy. You know, he put a lot of passion into his show, and so all the very best to him, and a welcome to you. And it's going to be interesting to see who's going to take on this new role now on Open Line. Maybe it's going to be you, hey?
Who knows? I do love it, I have to say.
Well, it's great, and it gives people an opportunity, everyone across the province, as you know, to call in, and it's certainly a great resource where people can call to do that. And of course, I'm calling to do that. But before I get on to my topic, I also want to extend my thanks to Dennis Brown, the consumer advocate, because he's been there for a decade, and he's put a lot into that. And one thing I really commend him for is his call on Newfoundland Power to have a review of the recent bills and the hikes that we're seeing and the crazy jumps in people's power bills, as well as his call for smart meters. It's time for Newfoundland Power, to upgrade this infrastructure to better suit the needs of the taxpayers, ultimately, who are the ratepayers here on the island, so they can have better control over their usage and they can see. In today's technology, we know they're doing it in other provinces, other jurisdictions, so we can do it here in Newfoundland and Labrador as well. So I hope that the new consumer advocate will certainly continue that call on Newfoundland Power to get those smart meters in place to better serve our residents.
My understanding, however, Pam, is that Newfoundland Power is hemmed in by legislation, and that was the legislation that was brought in that requires the least cost option. Of course, Newfoundland Power's argument is that the cost of introducing or putting in this infrastructure would not make it the least cost option. It would actually increase prices.
Well, I think it's safe to say that if it's a legislation hinder, we're calling on Tony Wakeham, Premier Wakeham. Let's open that House of Assembly. Unfortunately, we missed the fall session. We do know the spring session is due to happen according to the parliamentary calendar, March 2nd. But hey, we're ready to get that at House of Assembly now. There's lots to talk about. It's a changing world. It's changing weather patterns. We're seeing, a crazy amount of winds this winter, which apparently, according to Newfoundland Power, that's what's impacting these bills. Whether it's the least cost option, maybe we could argue that given what the burden that's put on taxpayers and the ratepayers, that maybe, it's something that certainly can be reviewed and debated in a fulsome discussion in the House of Assembly. So if that's the case, let's get back into that legislature. We're all ready to go. So all MHAs from all parties, including the independents, can get in there and have these very important debates.
Certainly, and I expect there's going to be an awful lot to talk about.
Oh, absolutely. There is, as you know. And Linda, as you know, what we've seen, unprecedented wildfires. I think everybody were on the edge of their seats from coast to coast to coast across this province this past summer. I know what it was like here in Bay Roberts and Harbour Grace Portagrave, the district I represent. Of course, as we know, the neighbouring district of Carbonear Trinity Bay Bird was slammed with wildfires. They're still dealing with that devastation. Over 200 homes were destroyed, as we know, and as we heard yesterday, those residents, many of them are still displaced. So, it's really time to get at, I want to hear more, and we want to hear more. Residents want to hear more. When I talk to people at the grocery store, at the mall, wherever I am, we really want to be prepared going into this next upcoming wildfire season. We're getting a lot of snow. We heard last year the reason for the dryness is the lack of snow for the previous season. So we need to be prepared. So, I'm really calling on the minister and her team. It's good to see that they're continuing the work that we did with regards to the Cabinet Committee. We struck that Cabinet Committee right away, which included a number of departments to best suit the needs with rebuilding that region. But we need to see what's happening. I found the update yesterday rather vague. We want more detail, and I'm calling on them for more transparency with regards to the fire breaks. A big promise they made was to provide each and every volunteer firefighter, I think there are about 6,000 in our province, with the wildland suits that they need, and increasing training and increasing equipment. So we need to know exactly where those things are. Government says it's there to help. I mean, we all know that, and ultimately I think that's pretty much all really was said. Some calls that we are getting, how is the Red Cross's money now being allocated? There's a number of area residents, as you know, Linda, have reached out with questions. I've even heard them calling into Open Line. They are expressing their frustration and their concern and their worry with how, this has rolled out to date, or rather lack of rolling out. What can government tell residents to ease these concerns? So really calling on them to be transparent. They've made a number of promises on the campaign trail in September and October. One big thing as well, Linda, is that we know the cell phone service is extremely poor in that area of the province, among many, even Holyrood and going through different parts of the Avalon. I mean, when I leave to drive to St. John's from my district, it's a good time to make some calls, return some calls, but it's not dependable. That service drops. So one big promise of the WACM government was to increase cell phone coverage. I think he said he would increase by 3 million annually. So cell phone coverage across the province by working with industry. Of course, we want to see that. He's also made the promise to fix the problems with the 911 system, including ambulance delays and the lack of funds for the volunteer firefighters. Well, these are all good promises that they made. Also, to ensure that the province is prepared for natural disasters. Just look what's happening in Port-aux-Basques. Unfortunately, we're seeing these unprecedented weather patterns. It's safe to say that climate change is certainly real. We're all experiencing that, and it's every season. It's winter, it's fall, and it's, of course, wildfire season. So there is a lot of concern. Of course, I am the shadow minister for this role. It's a huge portfolio, justice and public safety. Just last week, we were talking about the rise in crime. I know I sat with a constituent here, a business owner, who told me that there's been ongoing theft, and he reached out to of course, law enforcement, and the response was, if it's less than $100, we can't respond. So, I mean, there's something that needs to be addressed. It certainly didn't happen overnight, but we're seeing these changes province-wide. So, and again, I'm here to offer as MHA, and of course, and we're all colleagues in that House of Assembly. And that's the thing. We're all here for the people of the province, and that's politics aside. So please, we're here to help. We're here, even let's see an all-party committee. It'd be great to see an all-party committee now going forward on what we're going to do with the demands and the crimes and our weather pattern. So, we're here to help. So, again, calling on the minister for a bit more transparency. We do know a school was destroyed and students have been displaced, as well as the teachers who were working there. So are they going to build a new school? Is that something that's going to be needed? And we do know that there's housing. And we do know that not only for the people who've lost their homes, but we do know we have a housing crunch here in the province as well, with particular for our seniors and whatnot. So is there going to be some permanent housing put out there in that region? So lots of questions. And again, let's get back in that House of Assembly, because there's so much to talk about and to discuss, and that we all have a vested interest in.
Pam, I do appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I look forward to speaking with you again, Linda. Take good care.
All right. Bye-bye.